I've been longing for this for quite a bit. I have been sitting on this for a while. Everything about this topic has been driving me up a wall for at least the past 3.5, 4+ years, pretty much since I've started baseball content, and it needs to be talked about more because it's not okay. Why are we now normalizing that our ace on every single team in Major League Baseball will inevitably be going down? They're going to be lost due to injury. That's what we're talking about in this one, folks. So I want to hear from you in the comments down below on this one because I can't get over the fact that over the years, especially since the sticky substance breakdown in 2021, which, mind you, was in direct hand because the MLB had the lowest offensive rates that we saw in decades within the first month and a half of that season. No headers at an astronomical rate, and before you knew it, the pitching was taking over the league, which meant that there was less viewership. There was down in fans, it was down in viewership, and that all went in hand with why we saw a sticky substance breakdown with no pre-existing notice when the league has put it to the side for years on end that everyone is using some type of sticky substance either to manipulate their pitches to actually give them more depth, more break, i.e. the Garrett Coles and then the Trevor Bauers to expose it all, and that went in direct hand with why the MLB went down on the breakdown because Rob Manfred can only be so embarrassed from, again, current players in the league, among other things. So all this combined into what it is now, which is a sticky substance breakdown that they apparently said was for the sole purpose to make sure that they can get down on the injury rates, the hit by pitches from pitchers to batters, even though we saw an uptick in hit by pitches over the ensuing next 2 seasons, at least across Major League Baseball. It doesn't make any sense, and there are a lot of conspiracies that go in hand with some of these takes, so I apologize in advance if you guys don't like some of them, but at the same time, you're watching this for a reason, and we have to have this breakdown. Because not only does it bother me that since the sticky substance breakdown, there has been this significant uptick in injuries for key pitchers when, mind you, so many pitchers were outspoken. Tyler Glasnow, one of the most outspoken in the game, went down with Tommy John surgery not long after the sticky substance breakdown and absolutely said how it was in direct hand because of the breakdown. Pitchers were given no notice whatsoever, and when they could have had, I don't know, a couple months, maybe heading into the offseason, they get noticed by MLB to say, hey, we're going to now do a stricter crackdown on this, but we'll give you guys the offseason to start to kind of get more acclimated to handle this. When, mind you, there are pitchers that have won years, if not their entire careers, utilizing things, whether it's rosin, sweat, whether it's things beyond that, like spider tack, obviously, where you're getting the heavy break, the uptick in RPMs with the spin rate, among other things. The point is that these injuries have continued. The league has went about it in a way to kind of downplay these things, to downplay the idea of having injuries, and in fact, let's try to eliminate them when the reality is that it's been the complete opposite. Not only has it been the opposite, where there's been a continued uptick and hit by pitches across Major League Baseball since the sticky substance breakdown, but the greater part of the discussion here is that we have just completely normalized the notion that every star pitcher, every uprising pitcher that we have in our respective organizations are just supposed to go down with injury. How does that make any sense? And that is exactly why I'm so ramped up right now. I'm pumped up to break this one down because we got a lot of information here to get into, and I'm feeling straight out of Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, saying I'm not effing leaving because I'm not effing leaving here for the first official video on the WardyMLB platform. Many of you guys know me here on YouTube. My name is Tyler Ward, better known as Wardy from the WardyNYM platform, which is for Mets coverage over there. If you guys know me there, great. Thank you so much for joining here. If you're new, thank you so much for joining. There is not going to be heavy Mets bias on this platform. I'm doing everything in my power to push that aside, as tempting as it is, because I have so many MLB-wide takes. No matter how much you love or hate them, I have a feeling you guys are going to certainly at least enjoy to have proper discourse in the comments about a lot of these discussions, and there's nothing that has grinded my gears more than the significant uptick in injuries that we have seen when Major League Baseball starters, no, Major League Baseball aces over the past number of years. players. It's just a normality that we go into every spring training. And yeah, this is where my Mets bias comes into play, because I'm fed up with seeing Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Kodai Senga, everyone and your mother going down with injury before the year begins, year after year. And when I get excited for a split second that my ace can be ready for the year, it's down before it even started. Cue Nick Madrigal's first play and final play with the Mets, and I apologize to Nick. Nothing personal. The reality here, folks, is that this is going to continue unless something can be done and something's changed about how we approach the game of pitching in Major League Baseball. Because just to give you guys some examples of how great of an issue this has been, let's not forget, just over the past year alone, aces that went down with injury and were out for either the entire 2024 season or the majority 2024 season are including the following: Spencer Strider, Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher, Shane McClanahan, Clayton Kershaw, Kodai Senga, Brandon Woodruff, Yuri Perez, Shane Bieber, Jacob deGrom, Sandy Alcantara. What did those last four have in common? They all went down with Tommy John surgery. Jake is a multi-time Tommy John surgery man that we know, sadly, and I don't wish that for him, obviously. I'm wishing him well. Sandy Alcantara, very happy to see him back out there, but man, oh man, it was brutal to not see him for over the past year plus, but I understand why the Miami Marlins are now doing what they're doing. And then you see guys there in Shohei Ohtani that it's great to see that he'll be back pitching hopefully at some point this year. And then other guys there in Shane McClanahan, who just apparently avoided what could have been a more serious injury. We all saw that very uncomfortable play where he was pitching there on the mound in his most recent spring outing, his final spring outing now that we know, and he was in a lot of pain. Grimace made a noise right away, cued them over. So McClanahan had a nerval issue going on there, but thankfully it appears that they have dodged a bigger bullet. That comes after when Shane McClanahan has been down the past year plus with injury. This is an ongoing issue in today's game. And now when I think of every uprising pitcher, and I don't wish this on anybody, so I'm not going to say specific names, but there are some really dominant young pitchers taking over both the National and American League right now, and I do have the great concern that before we know it's going to be a ticking time bomb there with that elbow, and bam, we're not going to see them for a year and a half. And the problem is that while yes, there is a greater comfortability with doing these surgeries, as Tyler Glasnow was on the Chris Rose rotation just over the past year or so and explained exactly that, how there's more of a comfortability than ever with the newfound technology, it doesn't change the fact that the risk that goes involved with this and the ultimate impact it has on your team, especially when you're investing in pitching. Because when we talk about investment in pitching, this has been a great controversy that we've seen in years across the past number of off seasons that were in direct hand with Scott Boras' clients. We saw with Blake Snell a year plus ago. We saw to a degree with Corbin Burns until we just saw the Arizona Diamondbacks pounce, and I respect them for doing that. Max Fried gets an absolute bag in what many believe is an overpay, and trust me, I know every contract in Major League Baseball that's a long-term deal that isn't with the Atlanta Braves, and like Ronald Acuna Jr., for example, is pretty much an overpay if it's not a homegrown talent that you get a discount on. So I'm bearing those things in mind while also understanding that overpay or not, this has been a continued problem, which has went in direct hand with teams' lack of interest to want to invest long-term into said pitchers. And that's why there's this greater divide, and there will continue to be in years going forward, because not only is Jacob deGrom a man who obviously got a big bag from the Rangers, was down not long after being acquired by them, and then bam, he wins the World Series while having an injury-riddled year. At least he was able to win the chip, and I wish him well for that. Max Scherzer, again, was injury-riddled his entire time there for the most part, but he was able to win too. But there's other guys that are on now bigger contracts. We're talking massive deals. Garrett Cole, let's not forget, down already this year. He was a ticking time bomb a year ago, but they were able to stretch him just out enough to have him down for the number of weeks to months that they did to start last year to get him ready for around midway of the season, and Garrett Cole was stalled from that point on for the most part. But now Cole is officially down for the next year plus. Kyle Bradish in that same division, same applies. Joe Musgrove that we know, who wasn't long coming back from injuries, now down plus, all with Tommy John surgery, the three of them. Clayton Kershaw is down for the majority of 2025 that we know as well, even though that's separate from TJ. And potentially Jared Jones is one of my favorite and most exciting young pitchers in the game today. It frustrates me so much, especially when my guys are like no taller than 6 foot or just under 6 foot, especially when you have guys touching 95 to north of 100, the way that Jared Jones was fairly consistently with his fastball. Sadly, the body just can't catch up to that without there's being a significant procedure in the process. And when we get into really the greater issue here and why there is not only an uptick, guys, but a significant uptick, listen to the following statistics I have to share with each and every one of you, okay? Just listen here. Velocity and UCL surgeries are both trending up since 2010. But when I say they're trending up, they're really trending up. In 2023, the American Medical Association found that over 35% of active pitchers have had Tommy John surgery, a 29% spike since 2016. A roughly 30% spike, everybody. And we're just supposed to normalize this like it's okay. Where are we going to be 5 years from now if there is not something figured out on the velocity front? Because again, we have a league that I love so much, trust me. But at the same time, it infuriates me when at the end of the day, this is an entertainment business. And this is a business that's focused on the dollars for themselves more than anything else. So when you have it about the game increasing in not only its ability on velocity with pitchers, but they're also speeding up the games itself, as there's already been traction that we've seen over the past year plus to indicate that there's a higher uptick in injuries in direct hand because we have the pitch clock now and because games are on average around a half hour shorter, right? When we see here, many pitchers have explained this as well for that exact reason as to why they've been injured. MLB's report also outlines a perceived trend that minor leaguers aren't built up to anything close to MLB workloads and are more vulnerable to injury at that workload they've never been trained to have. This is the exact point. Their elbows can't handle it. This isn't something that they're normalized to do. And now we have people thinking, okay, if I can have my kid get Tommy John surgery for the first time at the age of 10, that's going to set him up brilliantly, so maybe he'll only have to have Tommy John one more time in his professional career. You could have Tommy John 3, 4 plus times, and you are just as much at risk of, God forbid, something happening from the first time than you are the fourth time. Why continue to go through that process? Why are we normalizing this in today's game? Because not only does it hurt things for the player and their potential health and their career projection, because not every pitcher that comes back from Tommy John surgery or obviously something with their shoulder that's usually absolutely devastating for them. Well, if we think of something like thoracic outlet syndrome, for example, that ruined the careers of Matt Harvey, Steven Strasburg, among others, there are various injuries that are the demise of these pitchers. We know that, but especially in the uptick in velocity, especially that we've seen over the past 5 years plus, it is just taking such a trend upward, the same way to a degree that the three ball has completely transformed the game of the NBA today, all thanks in large part to Steph Curry. Now, if you don't have the three ball, you're not going to be a winning team. You're going to have no shot at a championship. You can't play today's NBA like that. The same way that you cannot play today's MLB without at least having some level of velocity on your team. If you don't have it in your rotation, you're making up for it in a fiery bullpen. If you don't have a fiery bullpen, you're making up for it with some Bulldogs on the mound touching 95 to 100 on the gun and giving you 6 to 7 shutty. And you know exactly who your favorite ace is I'm probably talking about right now. But these guys continue to go down with injury the way that they have. Not only is that terrible for the players, but it's terrible for the fans. Let's not forget that. It's terrible for the team. Imagine investing, say, into a player for $25 to $30 million plus per year for the next decade plus, and as soon as he signed the guy, he goes down with Tommy John for another year plus. Oh yeah, he's already in his mid to late 30s. Cough, cough. I know, Jake. I got 2 DeGrom bobbleheads right here, and I love him to death. It's a shame because the DeGrom story in particular is something very noteworthy, because when Jake first started his career, he was sitting 93 to 95. This was not a overly dominant flamethrower. Noah Syndergaard was, and that was his ultimate demise because he was working out heavy, tried to change things, and then bam, after some serious injuries, he was never able to get that velocity back, and instead now he's helping host the Mets' first official game that they're doing a watch party of with Terry Collins while the Mets have their game in Houston. Mind you, Noah's in his early 30s, right? That's crazy. Thor, that could have been. Well, that 3-4 year peak was immaculate. Had to be there. All right, biased Wardy, get out of here. Let's focus more on Jacob deGrom, on not just his Mets tenure, but his Rangers tenure. Because Jake was a late bloomer on the velocity. He didn't start to tap into 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, and 102 until he already got into his 30s for the most part. Now, as DeGrom is on the second half of 35 plus, he's not getting any younger that we know, and there's still significant investment in that deal. And when we look at other guys like Garrett Cole, I have confidence that he'll be able to come back from Tommy John, but there's no denying that the velocity will more than likely downtick at the same time. It might not be significant, but it may be enough to make Garrett Cole go from being the most dominant pitcher in the American League league or close to one versus just being a pretty darn good pitcher that you're going to want in your rotation, but is clearly on an overpay. I understand that he also is not on a contract that's $300 million for the next 10 years anymore, but he's still making a good payday for what you're getting, and that's important to evaluate if you're a big market team like the Yankees. When you have limited dollars to spend, at least it appears that way at times because you have so many inflated contracts, right? And then we talk about all these other players that have been impacted over the game today. At what point are we going to reach a conclusion to say, this needs to be nipped in the bud? This needs to stop. I don't know when that's going to be, and I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below when that'll be, because as I was referencing earlier on MLB reports, let's get back to one of these reports, which references the following. MLB released a report this past offseason that said the increase in injuries is tied to chasing stuff and velocity. Amateurs have velocity and stuff maximization pushed on them to get ahead and get signed professionally, which does make a lot of sense. And again, because velo is what the game is focused on most today, that is where we see they're focused on the pockets more than they are the actual players themselves, which really does bother me as a fan. And they get signed professionally, so the chase for velocity and stuff is becoming rooted in all levels of baseball and not easily amenable. There are common reports that velocity and injury are correlated, so harder throwing, better pitchers are more at risk for severe injury. Color me shocked. No one should be. This has been a clear sign over the past number of years that we've seen. This is why it's usually the better pitchers that get noticeably hurt. They throw harder and tend to get more at risk to begin with due to their stuff and skill set. Pitchers will continue to chase velo and take the injury risks since velocity and stuff guys get paid more than finesse guys, and that isn't changing anytime soon unless we do see the change where guys are going to go back to being more crafty, 95 to 96 range, and having more arm health there with either their elbow to avoid Tommy John surgery, to make sure that they don't have capsule injuries with their shoulder, among other things. This just frustrates me so much. I can't begin to tell you guys. I mean, I can begin to tell you guys because that's what I've been ranting about for the past however long this video is going to be and however long or short it's going to be chopped up by our guy Mike, and he knows who he is. Shout out to Stark Raving Sports for making this puppy happen. If I haven't said that already, this is presented by Stark Raving Sports. There are many reasons as to why pitchers get hurt each and every year, but the clear uptick, we're talking 30% uptick over the past year or two, is clearly indicative of the velocity and the chase for it and how much it's impacting today's game. Without the velocity, the dollars don't come along with it. That's why Paul Skeens, if he can stay relatively healthy throughout his career, he may very well go on to be the highest paid pitcher in Major League Baseball, far outweighing the $325 that Yoshinobu Yamamoto just got a year and a half ago there by the LA Dodgers. But this is one that I think needs to reach a conclusion at some point and needs to be further talked about, in my opinion, when we discuss the next CBA and what it means from the players' union standpoint. I understand they want to search for a bag, but I also understand the importance on health and how much this can continue to be a quick slippery slope and something much greater than maybe what's being perceived as currently. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much if you enjoyed. This was all over the place, I understand. We're going to be doing various MLB content just like this. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content, let us know in the comments down below. What topics would you like us to discuss next, as they will be all MLB centric, but they're not all going to be indicative to just what is currently happening in Major League Baseball. Some of them can very well be more just about the game in general. That's going to be more evergreen. So whatever you guys are interested in is what we're going to hammer. Thank you guys again. Check out WardyMLB if you're a Mets fan. Enjoy Mets content over there. Check out my work and Bleacher Report app, as I am a weekly host Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, rambling about all various things in Major League Baseball like this, but more current event hot button topics throughout the regular season especially. And check out also my respective work there as a contributor on the side with the New York Post Sports YouTube channel. See you guys in the next one.